Oh, the cell phone. Let's see, any children?
I listen to the wind of my soul. Where I'll end up, well, I think only God really knows. I set upon the setting sun, but never, I never wanted water once. No, never. I listen to my words, but they fall far below. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I swam upon the devil's lake, but never, I never made the same mistake. No, never. I listen to the wind of my soul.
Greetings. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. My name is Dale Hill. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the Sunday Services Coordinator for today. I am so glad that you are able to be with us this morning, either here in person or in Zoom, because you are each an essential part of our gathering today. Whether this is your first or 1,000th Sunday here, we are stronger because you are with us. Together we create community, the community we so desperately need as we navigate living in this moment. Here at UU Danbury, our beliefs are diverse and inclusive. We have no shared creed, but rather a shared covenant. A covenant that is expressed through shared values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, all deeply connected through love. As a congregation, We have been gathering together for over 200 years. As we work to build a more just world, we respectfully acknowledge that our physical building is on the traditional unceded land of the Pwcaset people. Our roots are deep and yet imperfect. I forgot to tell you a little bit about myself. I have been a UU since 1997 down in Maryland and a member of this congregation for the last 3 years. I am in the choir, and my husband and I attend Music at the Ridge and Movies with a Message whenever possible. For those of you who are here for the first time, let me explain that this congregation is ministerially led by a part-time, half-time minister, Reverend Tony Lorenzen. But Reverend Tony is on sabbatical until September 7th, which is our in-gathering service. So this summer, we are fortunate to be led by guest ministers and members of the congregation. For example, this morning, we have the Reverend Suze Shaner-Brodax, who has been coming to UUCD for 23 years. She came as a single parent of a 4-year-old girl, Nikki, looking for a community and a place to raise her daughter with a more eclectic influence than how she was raised in her former faith. She's been involved in our congregation in many ways over the years. Vice President of the board, leader of the growth strategy team, and a Dorothy Day volunteer. She has taught in the religious education program and currently co-leads the monthly spiritual cinema evenings called Movies with a Message with her husband, Dan. She feels a deep connection to Kabbalistic teachings. I'm sure she'll explain what that is. Kabbalistic. And earth-based.
I don't know, Dale.
Not cannibalistic, Kabbalistic, with a K.
Oh, Kabbalistic, the Kabbalah.
Okay, that's how you pronounce it, Kabbalistic. And earth-based traditions as well. It is just this past June that Reverend Suze was ordained as an interfaith, interspiritual minister. We also have just one announcement. Apparently, the motor that aims the camera is not working right. So please be patient with it as we aim it manually today. For more information on future events, please see our order of service, our weekly mail newsletter, and the calendar on our website at uudanbury.org. Before we begin worship this morning, I invite you to greet those around you, either here in person or using the chat.
You know what it sounded like?
Is that what it sounded like? Okay. Unless we have somebody else to ring the chimes. We make this time and this place holy simply by being together. We begin by lighting the flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I suppose I shall have to do this. It's not working. There we go. But seems to need recharging. Oh, there we go. There's one. Okay. Thank you, Reverend Suze. It takes a reverend. Now, join me in our recitation of the morning's words to light the chalice. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another, to celebrate life. Now, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our hymn of welcome. Enter, rejoice, and come in. And now the children's affirmation. The words will be on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other.
Okay, we're going to have our children's story. And today, this is a version of the Good Samaritan written by our own Reverend Sarah Marie DeFeo, excuse me. Okay, so today's story comes from the Christian tradition. Jesus was a great teacher. Even though he lived a long, long time ago, his words of truth and love, the stories he told, and stories about his life are still being told today. You might remember when we told the story of his birth back in December in our Christmas pageant. When Jesus was alive, often people followed him and they asked him questions. Sometimes he told them stories called parables so they could understand the answers to these big questions. One day, a person asked him what the most important thing in life was. And Jesus said, "You already know." "This is true," the person said. "I do. It's to love God and to love my neighbor as myself." The person paused a moment and thought. He then asked another question. "But who is my neighbor?" So Jesus, the great teacher, told this parable, the story we're about to tell. So we need a road for this story. Do you think we could imagine that this is the road from Jerusalem to Jericho? So we're going to imagine that this is the road right here. Okay. And I have some volunteers, thank you, to play the parts in this story. Could I please have volunteer number 1? Dan, thank you. It's my husband. He got roped into this. Okay. So there once was someone who went from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And as he went along his way, he was attacked by robbers. They hurt him, took everything he had, and left him by the side of the road, half dead. Volunteer number 2. There was an important person traveling the same road, someone you might expect to be a helper. Who are people we know as helpers here in Connecticut? Who might you say? Firemen, teachers, nurses, all people that might help. Yep. In this story, the important person who you would expect to be a helper was also traveling this same road. They came upon the person who was hurt, who had everything taken from him and had been left by the side of the road half dead. But they didn't stop. They crossed to the other side of the road and kept walking. There was also someone else traveling that day. This person was known for being very smart and was another person you might expect would be a helper. But when they came upon the person who had been hurt, who had everything taken from him and left by the side of the road half dead, they too didn't stop. They crossed to the other side of the road and kept walking. There was also a person who went on the road who did not live in Jerusalem. This person was visiting from a country called Samaria. The people in Samaria did not even like the people in Jerusalem, and the people in Jerusalem did not like the people from Samaria. But even though the people from Samaria did not like the people from Jerusalem, when the stranger came to where the person who had been hurt and had everything taken from him and left by the side of the road half dead, she went to him. The stranger put medicine on the places where the person was hurt. She gave him his coat to put on. They then put him on a donkey. They put him on a donkey and took him to a place to spend the night. The stranger even stayed with him all night, and in the morning gave the innkeeper enough money for him to stay there until he was well. So ends the story.
Formal classes for children and youth are not meeting during the summer. I'm not sure I need to make this announcement. However, there is childcare available for any that want to go. Let us now sing This Little Light of Mine. Words. Now is the time in the service when we share the milestones of our lives with one another. It is a time of coming together as a community in quiet contemplation, a time when we can offer healing and hope, and a time also for giving thanks and offering gratitude.
So I'm going to recite what I call a collage of different ways in which different people have spoken about what is a calling. So we just heard some joys, but we heard a lot of sorrows as well. And we've got a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot that we could attend to. So what I'm going to invite you in is you can either soften your gaze or close your eyes. And I'm going to invite you to just take in these different ways to think about a calling and just notice what deeply resonates with you. Black elk. All over the sky, A sacred voice is calling your name. Frederick Buechner. The place God calls you is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. Vincent van Gogh. Your profession is not what brings home your weekly paycheck. Your profession is to what you're put here on earth to do with such passion and such intensity that it becomes spiritual in calling. Parker Palmer. Before I can tell my life what I want to do with it, I must listen to my life telling me who I am. Our deepest calling is to grow in our own authentic selfhood, whether or not it conforms to some image of who we ought to be. As we do so, we will not only find the joy that every human being seeks, we will also find our path of authentic service in the world. C.S. Lewis. You would not have called me, you would not have called to me unless I had been calling to you. Barry Lopez. We cannot, of course, save the world because we do not have authority over all its parts. We can serve the world, though. That is everyone's calling, to lead a life that helps. Lucy H. Pierce. Who is she? She is your power, your feminine source, Big Mama, the goddess, the great mystery, the web weaver, the life force. The first time, the 20th time, you may not recognize her or pretend not to hear, as she fills your body with ripples of terror and delight. But when she calls, you will know you've been called. Then it is up to you to decide if you will answer. Barbara Brown Taylor. We are born seekers, calling strange names into the darkness from our earliest days, because we know we are not meant to be alone, and because we know that we await someone whom we cannot always see. Eddie Hilsman. Ultimately, we have just one moral duty: to reclaim large areas of peace in ourselves, more and more peace, and to reflect it to others. And the more peace there is in us, the more peace there will be in our troubled world. Oprah Winfrey. I believe there's a calling for all of us. I know that every human being has value and purpose. The real work of our lives is to be aware and awakened, to answer the call. Marianne Williamson. Each of us has a unique part to play in the healing of the world. Rabindranath Tagore. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy.
Well, I left my happy home to see what I could find out. I left my folk and friend with the aim to clear my mind out. Well, I hit the rowdy road, many kind I met there, many stories told me of the way to get there. So on and on I go, seconds take the time out. So much left to know, and I'm on the road to find out. Well, in the end I know On the way I wander through descending snow and through the frost and thunder. Well, I listen to the wind come howl, it's telling me I have to hurry. I listen to the robin song, say not to worry. So on and on I go, seconds tick the time out. So much left to know, and I'm on the road to find out. Then I find myself alone, hoping someone would miss me, thinking about my home, and the last one to kiss me. But sometimes I have to moan, nothing seems to suit you, and nevertheless, you know, you're locked toward the future. So on and on you go, seconds tick the time out, so much left to know, on the road to find out. Then I found my head one day, when I wasn't even trying, and it's here I have to say, 'cause there is no use in lying. Yes, the answer lies within, when I take a look now, check out the devil's sin, pick up the good book now. Yes, the answer lies within, why not take a look now, check out the devil's sin, pick up the book now.
Excerpts from Answer the Call, Make It Heaven by Rebecca Skeel. A sacred calling is a heart summon. It summons you to the truth of who you are and beckons you to express the truth in your life. Sacred callings consist of your essence, your very soul. They are revealed to you through an alchemical process of turning the leadenness of your humanity into an illuminating expression of love, loving your gold. Sacred callings emerge from deep heart stirrings as longings that have been whispering to you for eons to awaken. Or, like a bolt of lightning, awaken you in one startling moment of clarity. Sacred callings can slay your heart, leaving you dazed by the enormity of what you've been called into. Co-creating heaven on earth, ending world hunger, restoring the Earth's natural ecosystems, saving the wild places, protecting the children, the animals, the coral reefs. These are not trifling callings that can be even manifested completely in one lifetime. The enormity of some callings can be humbling, but the calling is real. Discovering the part of you that is being asked to show up and contribute is vital. Sacred callings sometimes emerge from what breaks your heart. Sometimes they bubble up from the depths of your joy, but they always come from inside of you.
When we give our time and energy to the work of the congregation, and when we donate to its financial support, we are giving gifts to each other. Together, we give to the community around us, both financial and via our food collection for Dorothy Day Hospitality House. To give monetarily this morning, you may use the QR code projected on the screen, or you may mail a check to UUCD at 24 Clabbered Ridge Road in Danbury, or of course, use the collection plate. The offering will now be gratefully received, and food donations will be collected. Hold up the food high.
Just yesterday morning, they let me know you were gone. With Suze and the plans they made put an end to you. Walked out on this morning and I wrote down this song. I just can't remember who sent it to. Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen a long time I could not find a friend, but I always thought that I'd see you again. Look down upon me, Jesus, you gotta help me make a stand. You just gotta see me through another day. My body's aching and my time is at hand, and I won't make it any other way. Whoa, I've seen fun and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend, but I always thought that I'd see you again. I've been working my mind to an easy time, my back turned towards the sun. Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around. I spend hours of time on a telephone line. They talk about things to come. Sweet dreams fly, machine in pieces on the ground. Whoa, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. Seen sunny days, thought would never end. Seen lonely times I could not find a friend, but I always thought that I'd see you again. And I always thought that I'd see you again. I thought I'd see you one more time again now. There's just a few things coming my way this time around now. I thought I'd see you, thought I'd see you, fire and rain.
Thank you. Dan has always been my co-conspirator with sermons. I tell him the theme, and he comes up with the songs. He knows the lyrics to every song ever written, I do believe. So, you've just heard many ways that people speak of a calling. And this sermon is the result of Jeffrey Archer, thank you, during a coffee hour asked me to do a sermon on how I came to be called to ministry. And my first reaction was, what? Why? Who would be interested in my story? So hopefully parts of my story are your story. My hope for today is you may resonate with some aspects of my story, as we are all called to something. To minister literally means to attend to the needs of someone. So as people, how are we all not called to tend to the needs of our fellow human being? The core question is, what is your expression? The unique way that you minister or tend to the people in your life. It doesn't have to be a profession. As long as you have a life, you have a calling. So we will explore ways you may consider how to think about your calling or ministry in life. Now, I've delivered about 15 sermons over the last 20 years as a layperson, but this is the first one I've done as a newly ordained interfaith, interspiritual minister. So I felt the weight of this one a little bit differently, I have to say. What does it mean, interfaith? Well, I studied the world's religions, ministry, and counseling. And even though I had a clinical degree, I'm trained as an expressive arts therapist. I'm really an artist. But this focus was in a spiritual context. I'm now trained to perform ceremonies, rituals, and to be of spiritual service. Interspiritual is a term coined by Wayne Teasdale, a Catholic monk. Its focus is to develop sacred space by respecting and honoring all spiritual and religious traditions. The intention is to love and accept all teachings, all people, all cultures everywhere. Ultimately, the focus is on the sacred connection between all life and a commitment to its flourishing. I deeply resonate with my seminary One Spirit's articulation of this. Quote, whether you look to Yahweh or Jesus, Muhammad, or the Dalai Lama, or whether you find freedom in the heavens or grounding in your breath or in the earth, whether you practice in silence or jubilant sound, at the core, we are all one. All spiritual traditions share universal teachings, which is where we can come together as one. Close quote. Some of you may feel this sounds very UU-ish. I found this very much to be the case during my 2 years in seminary. Now, about a dozen years ago, I took a UU's course with Reverend Barbara Fast, Building Your Own Theology. That's where you can determine what it is you believe, such as we take our senior high youth when they create their credo. I also taught in neighboring faiths to our middle schoolers in our religious education program. And my seminary studies felt like a deeper dive on that neighboring faiths curriculum in a way. I don't have a congregation. I offer services affiliated with my seminary as an independent minister, a sermon leader and speaker, retreat leader. I've done many retreats over the years anyway. A life celebrant, offering custom rituals and ceremonies that observe life milestones and traditions in life and work. And I prefer to think of being a reverend as a daily call and reminder to myself to revere the sacredness of life. My ministry supports others to find purpose and meaning and a sense of belonging in their life and work. The outcomes of this is to experience healing and or to more fully realize the potential of who you are meant to be. The question I've explored for myself and with my clients are, who am I? And what do I do to be in alignment, more closely aligned with my highest calling? How do I need to be and be of service in the world, particularly at this point in time? How might we all be called? Margaret, would you show the slides? I have a slide here. We'll just pause a second. Well, okay. So I stumbled upon this image on Facebook a few weeks ago, and I apologize that this is depicting God as a man reaching out to a man, because my view is God and callings are much more than we can describe and not just associated with anthropomorphic, making God a person, associated with one gender, but ultimately genderless, beyond people. But bear with me while I use this as a metaphor. Here's what the text said, quote, in Michelangelo's creation of Adam, the subtle gap between the fingers speaks volumes. God's finger is outstretched, activated, reaching, while Adam's is relaxed and slightly bent. This tiny space between them suggests that divine connection isn't forced, it's offered. The spark of life or divine touch depends on Adam's choice to reach back. It's a powerful symbol of free will and the role, the human role in forging that bond. Close quote. I was like, wow, this is as I was contemplating this sermon. So I was like, well, that says it all. Often a calling is more soft and subtle and requires a choice for us to respond or not. Oftentimes a calling comes out of a deep struggle. And I'm going to use the metaphor of my climb on the red rocks in Sedona to explore this a little bit. Yes, those rocks were calling me. So next slide. Now, okay, this is me in tree pose. So yes, this is a poser shot taken of me on top of Cathedral Rock. I look balanced, happy, in my element. What you don't see is I didn't make it to the top on my first climb. You don't see me hanging literally by the tips of my fingers while my cell phone rings in my back pocket and I pull it out. It's my husband saying, "Are you okay?" Because he didn't walk the climb with me. And I'm there like, yeah, he called me every 5 minutes. I said, yes, but if you keep calling me, I will not be okay because I cannot balance and answer the phone. 45 minutes into the hike, it was about to get dark and I was going to miss the last shuttle bus. So I stopped 5 minutes from the top. I wanted to make it to the top. The climb itself is very arduous and not described, I didn't think in my humble experience, the way it is. 1.2 miles, moderate climb, no, okay? And I think I'm pretty spry and adventurous, but there were moments which was literally hand over hand, climbing on the rock without much to grab onto. There were moments where I didn't think I would make it, not just to the top, but I might not cause myself serious injury, okay? So a couple days later, Dan said he wanted to go with me on the quest to the top. I said, look, no pressure, I'm going, but you don't have to go. He insisted. He said, I'm not going to let my wife show me up. I said, okay, so off we went. So next slide. Okay, so that's Dan. I have his permission to show the slide. So he's in the red jacket. Okay. You can see there were places where it was crowded and people graciously helped one another. It was a humbling process where we felt like, hey, we're all in this together. We want to get to the top, or, in spiritual terms, we want to see enlightenment. We want to have that great view, right? And so there were a number of times where we needed people to give us a lift, literally give us a hand and pull us up. And there were a couple of moments where we both experienced what Dan and I now affectionately refer to as terror on the rock. Terror. And I kid you not, it was absolute terror. We didn't see any way down. And one time I looked down and it was a straight shot down 20 or 30 feet with nothing to grab onto. I was like, holy cannolis. My breath was in my throat, terrified. And I had visions of myself splattered at the bottom with broken bones. I eventually leaned way back and I was wearing jeans and I slid down on my butt, tore a huge hole in my back bottom. I was like, whatever, small price to pay for having an intact body, who cares? And then I got down to a landing and I looked up and Dan was clinging to the rock. And I said, come on, hon. He said, I can't. He was clinging to he goes, I can't, no way. I'm not moving. There was a woman down below. She said, do you need help? I said, no, we're okay. I look up. I found out 18-year-old young man named Alex, couldn't have been more than 120 pounds, dripping wet, standing like he was Spider-Man, like suction were on the bottom of his feet. He was standing there. And I said, excuse me, my husband is over there. Can you help him? Because he wasn't going to move and I couldn't climb back up. So anyway, we found out that Alex was studying mechanical engineering. He found every nook and cranny to put his hands, put his toes. He got Dan down to the bottom of the landing. Needless to say, Dan gave him a huge hug saying, you saved my life. Because he did in a way, psychologically, maybe physically, right? Okay. Thank you. That's the end of the slide portion of the show. To me, this journey describes life and listening to your life. So you can hear what your next step is. And maybe sometimes you need help. And maybe it's hard to ask for help. And you don't know which way to go or what you're supposed to do. And It seems desperate, and sometimes it's real or imagined, and it doesn't matter because your brain doesn't know the difference. So the photos were posted on Facebook and they look cool, but they don't do justice to the mental and emotional, we could say, and spiritual process we went through to have this experience of it all: joy, terror, beauty, and accomplishment. The cover on your order of service is my view from the top, not from the end of the trail. This is interesting. Somebody told us when you get to the end, it says end of trail, right? And what song were we singing? Dan and I found another woman. We got almost to the top and we started singing. Oh, we burst out spontaneously. I listen to the wind of my soul. We were like so elated that we made it, right? But then they said, go past the top of the trail. And if you walk around to the left, well, they didn't tell us. There was another hard scrabble, hand over hand, rock climbing. And then I lifted myself up and I got to the top and whew, that's what I saw, that view there. And what you don't see is just beyond where I'm sitting, cross-legged, hundreds of feet down. So I got to the top, I was quiet. And then I see Dan's head pop up. There's other people there, and everyone's quiet. And then I say, because he had just turned 70 the day before, a 70-year-old man did this. I go, give this man a hand. He just turned 70. And they all said, wow, really? And I was like, oh. So then I went quiet again, and I meditated in this space. It was one of the most energetically powerful places I have ever been in. And then we had to make our way down, okay? So what does all this have to do with a calling? A calling sounds cool, but it has challenges, which requires the will of commitment. It's always more than you think it's going to be. Just like a job or any relationship, it appears one way on the outside, but once you get into it, there's more involved in saying yes and living more fully into that yes on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. Think about your life. Do you have a way that you serve that feels so fulfilling, you're committed to it, but sometimes it's draining or it's scary? Why do we answer a calling again and again? Because it's life speaking to us and offering us connection, empathy, compassion, or a sense of meaning or purpose beyond ourselves. Science now validates what many of us intuitively know to be true. We need each other. And serving others gives us a deep sense of feeling more fulfilled. I, like many others before me, consider a calling to be a persistent whisper, a knowing that keeps at you over days, weeks, months, years. Sometimes it's loud and it's unapologetic. Often, though, it's subtle between the creases of our lives, almost barely perceptible. A sparkle, if you will, of insight, of deep resonance, joy or empathy that we are compelled to reach forward. There are ways I've answered this spiritual call to be of service throughout my life, or one might say a calling lives in us all along. But my path to be a reverend is a 40-year spiritual transformational journey. I'm on the remedial plan in life. Yes, folks. If I had grown up in a religion where women had leadership roles, I might have come to this sooner in life. I was raised in a large Irish Catholic chaotic family. I went to church every Sunday and received my baptism, first communion, and confirmation in the church. I grew up going to religious education classes, or we call them catechism or CCD. Do you know, I never even knew what CCD meant until this week. I looked it up. It means confraternity of Christian doctrine. So I was literally indoctrinating into the Catholic Church Christian faith. Church initially connected me to my sense of God. I was taught to believe in Jesus and that he was the only way to get to God. From a very young age, I also had a sense of the sacred, the mystery in life by being connected to nature, to art, to music, to the creative process, and to people. In my youth, I don't know that I reconciled how all this kind of came together, but for as long as I can remember, I felt a sense of connectedness to God, or a sense of spirituality. What I call God and how I think about it has changed over the years. My husband says, just add an O and God is the good in people. I can get behind that definition, and so many other ways to define God or a sense of the divine. My yoga practice, I'm a trained Kundalini yoga instructor, calls it God, generator, organizer, and destroyer or deliverer. It's the entire cycle of creation. My late teens and early 20s were instrumental in setting me on a spiritual quest that has been with me ever since, evolving with many twists and turns. As fate would have it, I ended up going to 2 Catholic colleges. I spent my first year at Regis College, a small all-women's Catholic college run by nuns, the Sisters of St. Joseph, and then transferred to Boston College, a Catholic university run by Jesuit priests. These environments had a profound influence on shaping my intellectual understanding or theology of God, service, and just society, what makes a just society, as well as forming my faith and spiritual life and curiosity about other religions. At 19, I had a fleeting thought of becoming a nun, but I didn't want to give up a romantic relationship with a man, and I also saw the subservient roles that nuns played in the church. So I said, I don't think that's for me. I can't be quiet. I took classes in college that ignited my interest, starting with the Greek classics, learning about Greek gods and goddesses. When I got to BC, I fulfilled a philosophy and theology core curriculum, The Person and Social Responsibility. We read classic texts like Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics and Plato's Republic about how to rule a just society. Then we had to have a practicum in a placement connected to social justice. I was placed in the lawyer's office. Barry Wilson, who was a protege of William Kunstler, a famous social justice lawyer, I got on a case defending an African-American young man who was on trial for murder. Very educational. We had to read these texts, reflect and journal our experience, and how to apply the theories of ethics, morality, and what makes a just society to our real life experience. I wanted to go deeper in these reflections, so took other classes such as Faith, Work, and Vocation, Faith and Identity, The Creative Person, The Challenge of Justice. In this last class, we read about Dorothy Day, who co-founded the Catholic Worker Movement, and we studied the complex situation of the conflict in Northern Ireland. This was in the 80s. I had another practicum at a soup kitchen and overnight shelter, Rosie's Place in Boston. I served soup and supervised overnight visits, and it challenged my preconceived notions around who becomes homeless. I sat there talking to people who had PhDs and struggling with addiction. At 21, I needed to take a year off from college because I ran out of money. I was paying for my school, had a million jobs. I returned to my childhood home to find my parents' marriage breaking up. Pained by all of this, I did a deep search on my life. I struggled and searched for purpose, meaning, and a way forward. 2 important books I read at that time: Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and Peace of Soul, Fulton Sheen, a Jesuit priest. My sister said, "Can you read something lighter?" These books sum up the last 40 years of my seeking and searching via disciplines of psychology, psychotherapy, spirituality, pursuing mystical experiences, where I feel connected to something greater than myself, sometimes in nature, through the arts, or in communion with other people. And I returned to BC for my senior year of college and deeply resonated with the Jesuit calling to teach, practice social justice, and to serve, so much so that upon my graduation, I applied to spend a year of my life in the Boston College International Volunteer Corps. I actually had to scrape together the 1 round trip airfare to even get down there. We had to pay for our airfare, and then we had a stipend. This was eventually taken over by the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. I ended up living and working in Kingston, Jamaica, the West Indies, where few tourists go. I was tasked with teaching school under the British system. I was an English and fine arts major, so I taught English. But then, guess what? They had me teach religion with a government syllabus to 240 10 and 12-year-olds. It was a Catholic school taken over by the government syllabus. They wanted me to teach Catholicism, but I had 40 different religions represented in my class. So I'd say, okay, these sacraments, here's what the Catholics believe. Go home and learn what your religion believes and come back and tell us. I was trying to strike the balance of how do I adhere to the curriculum, but I make it real for them. And our textbook was the Bible. And I also had to teach sex education, AKA no premarital sex. Needless to say, it was an interesting year. We were also asked to have a ministry in addition to our day job. This was described as a volunteer job working in the community. I went to Eventide, the home for the dying and the destitute, one day to see if this could be my ministry. When I went into the baby's room, I was too overcome by this horrific scene, I couldn't return. I felt the need was so great, and I felt guilty that I couldn't do it. But I had to discern what was the particular ministry that was mine to do. Instead, I worked for a squatter community, people living in shacks on the University of West Indies land. I helped them make candles and sell the candles, and the proceeds went to pay for the food for the community. One night, as I was on the minibus leaving the grounds, I was reading M. Scott Peck's Road Less Traveled. So I was always trying to apply schools of thoughts to how I was living my life in the real world, seeking this intersection of my emotional, psychological, and spiritual life and how I could best be present to be of service. That year, I often found myself asking these questions because you know what? They asked me. I wasn't trained as a teacher. I didn't even know. I had to figure it out. I'm smart, but I wasn't a trained teacher, and I was there along Jamaican teachers, probably because I was American and I was white, and they somehow thought I could do it just as good or better. I was very aware of that at the time. I was very uncomfortable with it. So I often asked myself, who am I to be doing this, and how did I get here, and what do I really have to offer, and how can I best help? This would be a humbling theme throughout my life. And I came back to the United States and I went to graduate school for expressive therapy, but I quickly pivoted to work in the corporate world because I had to pay off my student loans. So I built a career in helping people realize their potential and training and people development. And I saw this as a calling, a ministry to support people. Along the way, I explored dozens of different spiritual paths and religious schools of thoughts. Unity Church, based on the metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. Course in Miracles. I became a Reiki master and a practitioner of other hands-on healing work. I studied the Universal Kabbalah. Dale, when you said that earlier, I thought it was capitalist. I was like, no, it's the Kabbalah. Kabbalah, which is the Jewish sect of the mystical sect of Judaism. But I studied the Universal Kabbalah and became a yoga and meditation teacher. And I'm very connected to the earth because I'm a gardener. So I also studied Wiccan and pagan traditions. So I'm very eclectic. And along the way, I got married in the Catholic Church, had my daughter baptized in that church. I didn't feel a particular resonance with it, but my first husband and I were both raised Catholic. But when I got divorced when my daughter was a year old, I spoke to the priest who married us about possibly getting an annulment. And if I ever wanted to get married in the Catholic Church again, and he said I had grounds for an annulment, but I would need to be interviewed and have all my family and friends interviewed and paid the church money. And with all due respect to the Catholic Church, I had just gone through a painful divorce and had to go through all this with my family and friends. And I was like, I cannot go through this again, and I cannot take my friends and family through this again. So I said, no, thank you. It felt like it was between me and God, and anyway. So then I had a friend, actually Lisa and Brad Green, told me about the UU. I didn't even know what UUism was. I thought it was the Moonies. I had no idea. And so when my daughter was 4, we came through the doors and I thought, well, this is interesting. And so I found this caring community and also a broader way to explore my spirituality in the context of there's many different sects of Catholicism and other religions, but I found a broader framework here. And when I first started doing sermons here, there wasn't the structure that we have today. And there's so many people that are involved in making the sermons, such as people you see here and Margaret and people behind the scenes and Sherry. And so they're all different ways to serve. They're all ministries of sorts. The core question I live with each day is, how can I both alleviate suffering and expand joy? We only know one with the other, and both are a part of life. And we live in a world that just wants to have all positivity, and that's not life. The joy helps us get through and put the hardships in perspective, and the suffering helps us appreciate the good stuff. And when I applied to that program at BC, I had no idea I'd be teaching religion. I didn't request it. I was an English and art major. Some of my friends taught math, French, history, science, right? So it was no coincidence probably that I was tagged for religion. But how did I come to be a minister? As you've heard, I've had a circuitous, multi-layered journey, and I heard about One Spirit Seminary in 2006, and it sounded interesting to me. At the time, I didn't have the time or the money with a 9-year-old, and I was getting ready to get remarried. Then in the winter of 2023, I was on a Zoom call with a monthly women's circle, and a voice popped into my head. One Spirit, it's time. That was it. I went on the website and I was like, that's it. The rest is history. It wasn't so much a decision as it was a final acceptance of what I had been seeking and what had been seeking me in different ways my entire life. A way to serve where I could bring all my presence, skills, experience, and creativity to help people in explicitly spiritual ways. Spiritual formation is the intentional process of growing in faith and leading a life of service. So here I now was. As Rabbi Hillel says, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? I experience a calling as what arises within us and how we respond to what is happening around us or coming at us in life. So it's a dynamic interplay of inner and outer life, if you will. And all song, art, poetry, literature, film are different expressions of how we are navigating life. What we give, how we serve, how we receive, and how we process what we experience in life. 10 years ago, I was at a Wisdom 2.0 conference in New York City. Deepak Chopra, some of you have heard of him, was present. He was doing a smaller session. There was maybe 50 or 75 people in it. So I raised my hand with a light question. I said, many people seek enlightenment. Can you speak to, is it possible to achieve enlightenment in this lifetime? And how do we get there? Because this is what all the world's traditions are after. And you know what? He surprised me with his answer. Here's what he said. And I found a friend of mine videotaped it. So I found it on my phone. I was like, what did he actually say? So this is from Deepak's mouth. If we achieve it here, we would be blithering idiots. We would not be able to do anything. We'd be doomed to eternal senility. You need a certain amount of challenge that gives you the material for life. Close quote. You know what? That answer made total sense to me. I've always been a seeker and a striver of higher consciousness in some form my entire life. Some of it was in search of joy. What am I moving towards? But most of it was spawned by my desire to heal from deep pain, moving away from. As I moved deeper into this process in seminary, I had a moment where I lost faith and I almost dropped out. I wrestled with God. I wrestled with spirit. In January 2024, I was really devastated and upset by something and working through some intense emotions. So I decided to walk in my labyrinth. I did a sermon on that. I have a labyrinth in my yard, as some of you know. It was about 5 p.m. on a Saturday. It was January, cold. I was walking, I was crying, I was breathing, I was moving my arms. I was like, I'm just going to walk the labyrinth. I don't know, but I'm just going to walk it out. And I got to the center of the labyrinth and I completely surrendered, meaning for those who know baby pose and yoga, down on the ground on the cold stones in the center of the labyrinth, my arms stretched out overhead, my forehead on the stones. And I completely broke down sobbing. And here's what I said. And by the way, every month we had to practice a spiritual tradition in that faith tradition. And this might have been the Jewish month, talking out loud to God. But I was talking out loud to God. I don't know what tradition, but I was talking out loud to God. And here's what I said. Help me, help me, help me. I'm at a loss and I just don't know how to move forward. And you know what? I'm in seminary and I don't even know if you exist. And I want you to prove it to me. Yeah. I need you to prove it to me that you exist in no uncertain terms. And guess what? You need to prove it to me in the next 24 to 36 hours. Like I want some unequivocal sign. Yeah, I want some unequivocal sign that I cannot refute it. I want you to, yeah. So that's what I did. I told God off and I composed myself and I walked out of the labyrinth. And Dan was waiting for me in the car, and I got in the car, and I was fine. That was it. And then the next day, I went into the city and met some of my friends from seminary. I was there all day. It was a taxing, emotional day, good day though. I got back home, pulled in my garage at 9:30 at night, and I had this voice in my head that said, "You need to go walk the labyrinth." Okay, it's cold, it's dark, it's nighttime. I'm like, I'm not walking the labyrinth. It's 9:30 at night. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Nope, you have to walk the labyrinth. I'm like, "Ah, okay, I'll walk the labyrinth." Then it said, you need to bring your iPhone with you. I never brought my iPhone in the labyrinth. I used the light of the moon. I'm like, I'm not bringing my iPhone in the labyrinth. No electronics in the labyrinth. No. It said, no, you have to bring your phone and you need to turn on your flashlight on the phone. I'm like, it's going to ruin the whole experience. I'm not doing that. I go, okay, I'm going to do it. So I start walking into the labyrinth, and one rung out from the center of the labyrinth. That's when I saw it. An egg, a whole egg in the middle of the labyrinth, literally a few inches from where I had my head the night before, where I was saying to God, you know what, give me a sign. Do you even exist? And there's this egg. So first I was like, what the heck? What's going on? You know? And I picked it up and I said, I'm going to incubate it inside. And then I said, no, wait a minute. I can't do that. I have to leave it outside. So I put it in the center of the labyrinth. And I texted my neighbor who has chickens. And I said, did your chickens get out? He said, no. I said, well, I have an egg in my yard. And he said, yeah, I have a ton of those. And I put bird feeders up for them. I lived on that property 26 years. I never saw an egg, ever. And I comb my property. I never saw an egg. So I chalked it up. This was my sign. And what was my sign? Well, my sign was incubate. You're in a formation process. Just hold tight, hang in there. You don't need to do anything. You need to just allow things to unfold. Don't control anything. And birth will happen in its own pace. So where does this leave me now? You know, at the beginning of my next chapter of ministry, my life has been a ministry, an expression of serving to make the world a better place. As one of the definitions of helping is, sometimes it's just like, how do you help make the world a little bit better? It will continue to take on different expressions. What I know for sure is it requires that I stay grounded, connected to my breath, so I can be most present to companion myself and other people on this spiritual journey, this thing called life. And it requires my own daily spiritual practice that includes forgiving myself and others, practicing empathy, compassion, and a willingness to extend myself and respond when others ask. And sometimes it's inconvenient. And to know I cannot save anyone. And I am not meant to serve everyone, but to do what I can do. My ministry comes out of my own pain and deep healing journey and my joy. We can't give away what we don't have. In the words of the late Andrea Gibson, when your heart is broken, you plant seeds in the cracks and you pray for rain. And isn't that how we get the strength to carry on when we are devastated? We pray, hope, or have faith that somehow something will grow from the pain and suffering. If we didn't believe it, we couldn't individually and as a species survive all we have survived. Sometimes you can't see the blessing in the pain and the mess of it. That's okay. Sometimes you have to hang in there until something shifts. You, the world, the ground beneath your feet. It is the vital energy of life that will always save us. I'm acutely aware of the challenge of being human, to feel and be affected by people, things, and events. So the invitation is, how do we allow ourselves to be moved, but not so moved that we are immovable, paralyzed, numbed, or overwhelmed and cannot cope? This is what is happening in the world today with all the polycrises we are experiencing. As Andrea says, it is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a sick society? What aspects of our society do you see as sick? Where or how are you called to minister, to attend to people? Where do you adjust to not rock the boat or to be healthy, to take care of yourself in important ways? And where do you say, hey, it's not okay. I'm going to get into some good trouble, in the words of John Lewis, the civil rights activist, and I'm going to do my part and help to make it better. We live in a world of chaos and overwhelm, and it can be easy to stay there. This will not help the world or help you. We are not called to do everything. We are called to be or do maybe one small thing that is expressed only through uniquely you in terms of your personal life. The world, God, spirit, the universe, whatever you believe, chose you at this point in time. What if sometimes your work is to make peace with that one small thing that is yours to do, that thing that is needed now that only you can do, and let go of the rest? What if? What does this then mean for you? Thank you.
Is it possible if we can skip one of these? I'm sorry, but it's 20 after.
I'll just do a couple of verses of this.
While she is taking care of some business, I did omit one announcement, and I'd like to just make up for that now. Make sure you see in the bulletin that Margaret Henderson, our former board president, will be leading the service next week, August 3rd, on UUCD's place in Unitarian Universalism. That's funny. That's changed. Anyway, the point is the Unitarian Universalist Association has been founded in 61, and Margaret was able to go to the UU.
You don't need to read it all. We'll just, we need to get out of here. We have childcare downstairs.
Okay.
So Dan's gonna do a couple.
Do you want me to do rejoice or part of the plan?
Oh,
I'll do one verse of part of the
then we'll
plan.
just do one song. What are we doing then, Margaret?
I'll do one verse of part of the plan and rejoice, okay?
What are you doing?
One verse of part of the plan and then rejoice. I end it with rejoice. Is that too much?
You can do one verse and then we'll do the.
Okay, do one verse, part of the plan, and then can I do the benediction, then you do rejoice?
Yeah. Thank you for the sermon, Susan. I have these moments so steady and strong, feeling so holy and humble. The next thing I know, I'm all worried and awake, feel myself starting to crumble. Well, the meetings get lost and the teachings get tossed, and you don't know what you're gonna do. You wait for the sun, but it never quite comes. But some kind of message comes through you. Some kind of message shoots through. And it says to you, love all you can, cry when you have to, feel you must, that's a part of the plan. And wait your arrival, simple survival, but one day we'll all understand. One day we'll all understand. One day we'll all understand. There's no Eden or heavenly gates that you're gonna make it through one day. But all of the answers you seek can be found in the dreams that you dream all along the way.
Are we still going to extinguish? Okay. Please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice, which are on the screen soon. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. And let's thank both Reverend Suze and Dan.
Song I wrote called Rejoice.
Okay, well, I'm just going to do the benediction
Do the
first, if
benediction.
that's okay.
Yep.
Very quickly,
I'll do
short
rejoice.
words. O sacred sparkle, divine light, May we know the effervescence of this light and be inspired to share in ways that serve and uplift. The place is here, the time is now. Amen, Amen, Ashe, Aho. Blessed be, and so it is. Satnam.
Rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Won't you come, lift up your voice. And rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Won't you come, lift up your voice. Well, it's a blessing we can sing. It helps us to remember everything. Feeling like our hearts are set on wings. All we have to do is sing. Ready, guys? We're gonna rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. We're gonna rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Find the thing that makes you sing. Maybe it's helping others find their way. Lift yourself up into space. Maybe you wanna help the human race. Whatever you do, you gotta do it with grace. So here we go. We're gonna rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Yeah, to rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. And won't you come, lift up your voice. Go climb a mountain, think it's too high. Never gonna know until you try. You can do anything you believe. So now we're gonna rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. I said rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Now won't you come, lift up your voice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Great job.